This is Troy Black. My brother Reese Black is with me. You're watching Filibustered. If you have kids, would you take them to see a horror film? What if that horror film was a values-based horror film? Would that make it any better? Well, Angel Studios, the studio that distributed Sound of Freedom, The Chosen originally, and it also has had, many other values-based TV shows and movies in its repertoire. This recent summer has kind of hit a hurdle. We'll see if it can jump this hurdle or not with its next film, David, which is coming out in theaters in December. But essentially what happened was some parents that really liked Angel Studios for a while felt tricked. Like they had gotten tricked into taking their kids to see a horror film in theaters. Mm-hmm. So is this the beginning of the end for Angel Studios? Are we watching them like slowly walk towards their demise, or are they able to clean up this mess? Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? What's happening, Reese?
Let's jump into it. So this is pretty crazy, but the movie in question we're talking about is Sketch, and it turned into a massive controversy. And there's a little bit of a backlash, I think, that's still continuing. That's caused people who are supporters of Angel Studios, like you said, to question, should I be supporting Angel Studios? So the film itself, to just give you a little overview of what it has been described as a comedy horror film or a horror comedy film, one of the two. But it has a PG rating. So I'm going to get into what does that mean, a comedy horror film with a PG rating. It does have a PG rating. The film itself definitely has family-centered themes. So it's about a family, and you have the family here. This is the dad. That's an aunt. Actually, the mom has passed away before the film started. And so the film is about a family learning to grieve with loss. And it doesn't shy away from that. So it has a little bit of a dark theme in that sense, of grief, but it is definitely has a positive sort of family unity and like family working together to grieve and work through loss, that sort of value. Do a little synopsis of the film. Like I said, the dad's trying to help his kids navigate through grief as well as himself. The aunt is just kind of there. And the daughter is drawing monsters in a sketchbook as a way to process like her dark and difficult emotions. And I will say she does seem to have I'd say a little bit disturbing fascination with like darkness and violence. And that comes out in her drawings. And then the sketchbook, of course, gets dropped in like a magic pond or something. And then all the sketches come to life and becomes a monster film because the sketches come to life and they start attacking the town, and the family has to try to save the day and figure out what to do with the monsters. So a little bit about the film. This was not made by Angel Studios. We'll get into a little bit more of that later. Angel Studios doesn't make things. They are a distributor. So this film was shown in 2024 at a Toronto Film Festival. It was made independently just by the independent producer, director, actors supporting the film, like a passion project. Angel Studios bought the rights and did a theatrical release on August 6th this summer, and then they started streaming it on August 26th on their platform. So that's a little bit about the film, but let's get into the problem because it became a big controversy. There's all the reasons we're going to get into.
I'll just say this. When I saw these reviews on Google the other day, I was shocked. And I was like, we got to cover this because I could not believe what I was seeing. The delineation between the 5-star reviews and the 1-star reviews. It's crazy.
Yeah, you can see it right here. Out of like almost 400 ratings, you can see lots of 5 stars, almost nothing in the middle. It's either people love the film or they hated the film, 1 stars. And just to give you an idea, the 1 stars, after reading through a bunch of these, most of the 1 stars that I saw was basically either Christians or just parents, whether they're Christian or not, who thought that this film was going to be like Christian friendly or family friendly. A lot like Angel Studios is known for, if not all the films are like faith based necessarily, they're at least what they're described as like faith friendly or family values kind of centered. And they thought that's kind of what they were getting into. And I'll talk about why. And then they were shocked and disturbed to find out that it was more of actually a legitimate horror film with a lot of horror elements, and people talk about, taking their kids to the theater and then leaving within like 10 minutes of the movie, after their kids get scared. And I'm laughing. I would hate to have been in that situation, but
right.
Yeah, that would be as a parent, that would be an awful situation to be in.
Right. I have 5 young kids, and there have been films, we don't take them to the theaters very often, to be honest, but there have been films that we've had to turn off or even walk out of, so It just happens.
Yeah, no, It definitely happens at times, but this was a lot of people felt really, really tricked. Like they thought they knew what they were getting into, and then it was not what they expected. The film does have a lot of really positive reviews. You see, it has like 95% on Rotten Tomato. So a lot of people actually really did like this film.
Of course, Rotten Tomatoes, I will say this, Rotten Tomatoes, that rating is not accurate nowadays because now they have a approved users rating that they put out front, and then you have to actually click for all users, and then you get the actual rating. And so it's hidden now behind the scenes. So if there's like a Hollywood approved film, it might have a really good rating on it because those are the approved users. And then once you look at the all users, then you see what the population actually thought about the movie.
Gotcha.
So Rotten Tomatoes has lost its credibility in so many ways.
I see that. It probably has a lower one on Rotten Tomatoes than if it just the sheer number of, again, Christians and upset parents going and posting 1-star reviews saying, I thought this was a family-friendly movie, and it absolutely wasn't. So what on earth happened? How did this turn into such a debacle? I think the whole reason comes down to the advertising. Maybe not necessarily the fact that Angel distributed it, but we can get into that. But definitely the reason why it turned out to be as bad as it did was because of the advertising. So Angel, you can see it right here. Angel's announcing that it's now on streaming. This is on August 27th. And they have advertised this film as you can write down here, family adventure film, family adventure film. And when I think of family adventure, it sticks out like, you can think of like the Pixar films, like Monsters Inc. or Up. You know, like there's some intense elements to those films, but it's nothing like, it's not a thriller. Like some parents probably wouldn't want their little kids watching those films, but there's no legitimate horror elements to it. And also, and it's not just their announcement of it here. The trailers is really the problem. They put out these massively well-produced trailers, and I watched all the trailers I could find. And the trailers for the upcoming, theatrical release, and then for the streaming, they are edited and they have the music in such a way that screams family-friendly adventure comedy film. That's what the trailers scream. They're like,
but when you see the film, it screams horror, no pun intended.
Yes, absolutely. No. And so, so I'm just gonna, out myself. I haven't watched the film, but I have read numerous reviews and watched numerous reviews as well in preparation for this. And as you can see, so they said family adventure film. This Catholic blog here, and pretty much anybody else labels this either a family horror comedy or just a comedy horror or like a PG rated horror with humor infused elements in it. And so just to describe this, reviewers who watch this film that are adults, right, that are used to watching horror movies said that the film was legitimately scary. They flinched a few times. They had actually jump scare moments. And so the reason it's like this is because the director made a genre blending film. So he specifically blended horror elements and then like a family comedy together specifically. So when you think horror elements, that's like scary music, like really scary music, creepy visuals, jump scares, lots of screaming and running away from monsters in a very intense way. So like that's absolutely what the film is. But then it also has like the little bit of family values and then like the comedic elements blended into it. But again, if you watch the trailers, you would not realize that. The trailers say family friendly adventure, like fun adventure, fighting these cartoony monsters in a fun kind of comical way. But really takes out the horror element. And so I think that's what tricked most people to go to watch it and then be like, oh, this is actually a horror film. In fact, those reviews, those like 5-star, 1-star reviews, they agreed with each other. Some of the 5-star reviews, people were like, this was marketed weird. They're like, I didn't realize it was going to be a horror film, but I loved it because they like the horror genre. And then the 1-stars agreed in the same way. They were like, I didn't realize this was going to be a horror film, and I hated it because I was there with my kids. And so that's kind of the issue that we're looking at here. It did split basically anybody who doesn't like horror, but that's why it's so crazy for Angel Studios, because the base of people that support Angel Studios, from what I understand, it's mostly Christians and parents who are not really going to appreciate the horror genre. I personally hate the horror genre. I fall underneath that category. Like I've seen some of the Angel Studios stuff. Like I've watched most of The Chosen. I've seen some other stuff that they put out. But yeah, the horror genre, in my opinion, is like a celebration of the disturbing, the grotesque, the dark, even the demonic. It's like a celebration of those things. So I think it's kind of an antithesis to the Christian faith, which focuses on, things that are pure, things that are good, that are wholesome. So I don't see how the horror genre fits or blends into like a family friendly genre, if that makes sense. So you have any
Right.
comments about this before we get into what Angel Studio tried to do to like address this issue?
Yeah, I just think it's interesting that they have a base level of supporters, Angel Studios does, which are called their guild members.
Yes.
And I think a big portion of that guild member audience is either Christian or potentially Mormon. We'll get into that in a few minutes, but at least like faith-based of some sort and probably family-centered, you know? And so I think it was a misreading, if nothing else, of what the guild members were, not just what they wanted, but what they would settle for, you know, or what they would approve of or be okay with. And so I think that they, you know, in a sense, shot themselves in the foot because it's like potentially lost a lot of guild member support over this. I don't know what the numbers are. I don't know what's happening inside of Angel Studios, but you know, it's like, and you know, I think they boast like over 1 million guild members, which is a lot. You know, that's a lot of support. But at the same time, it's like, what did they lose based on this? I don't know. And are they, you know, obviously we're going to talk about the David film in a few minutes. Like, are they going to be able to kind of regain the trust of their supporters through that film? Possibly. But yeah, let's hear a word from our sponsor and then we'll get back and talk through it. Investing can be confusing and scary, but it doesn't have to be. Genesis Gold Group takes the guessing out of the game and guides you on your gold investment journey. We at Filibusted love the genius design of the Prepper Bar, which breaks up into sections, kind of like a chocolate bar. But if you prefer high security insured gold storage, they have that too. And unlike Fort Knox, the gold is actually there, 100% owned by you. So don't wait to get started. Visit filibustedgold.com today for a free investment guide from Genesis Gold Group. So, you know, for those watching, if you're a Christian, obviously, and a Christian with young kids, this is going to matter a lot. If you're not a Christian or if you don't have young kids, maybe this doesn't matter so much, but it will be interesting either way to see what happens in the future with this company, with Angel Studios, you know, and to see if this is actually going to be a big hurdle in the road for them or whether they're going to be able to, you know, quickly move on. But yeah, a couple of things you mentioned, Reese, that I thought were interesting. The reviewers, a lot of them, the ones that didn't like it, use the word demonic, you know, and they even, Angel Studios responded to this and they did a hour-long podcast you see on the screen here, episode where they talked through the negative comments, you know, and they mentioned a lot of the viewers use that word demonic, you know, and they addressed a specific scary character that they had in there, which I don't know the name of the character, but it's like the evil version of the girl in, you know, in her own mind or whatever, you know, it's her dark side or whatever, playing out as a monster. And so it's like, it doesn't look very scary here in the concept art, but in the actual, I watched a scene in the film with this character and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty freaky. You know, like you can make it real scary with the music and all that kind of stuff and the movement and all that. And so, yeah, it's a frightening character. Right. And I think what they were trying to do, like the creators of the film, and I'm not talking about Angel Studios necessarily, but I think the creators of the film were trying to connect. So they were trying to connect with people who are experiencing loss, especially young people who have experienced loss. And for somebody that's experienced that maybe there are dark thoughts happening. Maybe there are some deep questions, you know, that they're going through. So I think maybe they were trying to do that. And so they thought, you know, the director or writer thought this genre could represent some of those feelings and would fit with that. And so I kind of understand from that, you know, bird's eye perspective, why they did what they did originally. But it's very interesting to see, you know, that they use their guild, Angel Studios, to determine which stories they're going to promote, you know, and they talk about reading some of the comments from guild members. And one of the comments that they talk about is where one of the guild members is saying, hey, we thought that you're going to be a company that was going to represent Christian values. And now this is what we get, you know, and we feel like this fell short. And I do want to say this for those that don't know about Angel Studios. You know, it is the founders of Angel Studios are Mormon. They're not Christian, you know, so they're religious and there's a lot of similarities when it comes to practical daily values and how you live your life and family values and things like that. But Mormonism and Christianity are two separate religions, you know, really. And so they have different beliefs at their core. And so they're not necessarily a Christian company. And I think that's where we're kind of getting into the weeds of it. Yes. As a Christian audience, are you okay? Like if you fall into that category, are you okay? And especially as a Christian parent, are you okay with a Mormon company or just a value-based company trying to promote Christian content and create that for you and provide a platform for that? Or are you actually, do you have to have a Christian company doing that? You know, like that's kind of the question. I mean, we've seen, you know, they've done some things. I was a big supporter of VidAngel from the start. You know, that was their streaming platform where you could filter through movies and you could cut out stuff you don't want to see. It was like a filtering service for films.
Right.
And I really liked that. But unfortunately, like one of the things that we've seen is we've seen a lot of legal battles, even with VidAngel. Like they got sued by Disney, they got sued by all those big companies, filmmaking companies. And then later they went through a huge legal battle with The Chosen and they split with The Chosen. And I'm like, it almost feels like everybody they work with ends up suing them, you know, like what's going on? And obviously they weren't working with those original studios. They were just stealing, they were taking their content, you know, they were reusing their content in an potentially unethical way. Right.
Right. Yeah.
And obviously,
and then it's not just The Chosen as well. Like this article here is actually for a different film called His Only Son. And that one's about like Abraham and Isaac anyways, but that was also, they got into a lawsuit with them as well, with them saying like they're trying to take over and hostile take over our movie that we made here, you know. So I don't know enough about that to have much of an opinion, but like you said, there's a little bit of smoke there with the stacking up of lawsuits is kind of interesting.
It feels a little bit questionable to me that the number of lawsuits that happen around this company. But but you know, that's beside the point almost. The main thing to me that I think stands out is there's a lot of Christians that we're disappointed because we thought you were going to uphold Christian values, but that's not really what they even claim. First off, the founders are not Christian, and that's not what they're claiming to uphold. They're literally, their motto is, we are going to amplify light.
Yes.
We're going to amplify light, you know, like that's what we're going to do. And if you see the new David trailer, you know, the trailer for David, I'm like, oh, they got their light theme in there because he's singing a song about, I've always been one to follow the light, you know, like in the David trailer. And so I'm like, there's it's kind of a Mormon, you know, like Angel Studios, like representation of what's good, you know, of like the right thing or the good thing, you know. And so I think that's the issue. The issue is that, you know, it's not a Christian definition of light necessarily. It's a, you know, Mormon definition or even more general definition of, and it comes down to what do they decide light looks like, you know, what is light and what's not. And obviously a horror film for kids fell under the category of amplifying light to them, you know. I think that's where I would draw my line or my conclusion from is, am I okay with, that's a question that needs to be answered. Am I okay with the company that is promoting Christian values, promoting Christian films, you know, promoting Christian TV shows, but maybe at its core doesn't necessarily agree with me on some of the base, you know, theological stances. And what do you think?
Yeah, well, I'm going to push back and defend Angel Studios just a little bit, but I do think you hit on a very important point, which is that it's not a Christian company in the sense that they are creating Christian movies. First off, just a reminder, they are a movie distributor. They're not creating anything. They're not making films. They're not making movies. They do two things. They buy the rights to distribute via, you know, streaming and then putting it in theaters, but they also help with crowdfunding, help raising money. So anybody can submit a film or a TV show idea to Angel Studios, and if the guild members vote on it and say yes, we like this idea, then it gets approved. So this is the thing. In defense of Angel Studios, their guild members, those million guild members, they get the chance to vote on every single project and decide whether or not they want to support it or not. I don't know how many of the million guild members gave a thumbs up to that film, to the sketch film, because they, from my understanding, because you can submit like a trailer idea, be like, hey, I have an idea for a TV show. I can submit an idea and see if the Angel Guild members will approve it and help me crowdfund it so that I can go make the TV show. And it doesn't have to be Christian. It could be anything. It could be literally anything. And if the guild members thumbs it up, I was like, yes, this is a positive thing. This is, you know, amplifying light as they say, then it'll get approved. And so that's exactly what happened with that film, except the film was already finished, which means when the guild members had the chance to approve it, my understanding is they had the chance to see the entire film if they wanted to and say, like, do we want to distribute this or not? And ultimately the guild members did approve it. However, it's probably a very small percentage of the guild members that actually go through and vote on all those things and take the time to do that, because obviously a large portion of the base was surprised when it came out, and they were like, "What is this film? I didn't remember approving a horror film." And it's like, well, they probably is a very small percentage that actually
I will
keeps
say
up
this
with
though,
all of it.
some films that are pre-produced and then they're picked up by a distributor or a studio or something like that after the fact, they do get a rewrite in some cases. Like the animation may be updated. So in some cases the entire soundtrack is updated. So it could have been a very early version of the film that guild members were able to see. I don't know if that's true or not, but it could have been.
Yeah, it's possible. I don't think it was, from my understanding, from my research, that it seemed to be a finished film that was put into a film festival before the Angel Studios picked it up. So I don't think Angel Studios really changed it too much per se, but
Yeah.
I can't prove that. I don't know that. But and also just to a little, to give credit a little bit where credit's due for Angel Studios, they did try, and this is a little bit of a lame attempt, but they did attempt to warn parents ahead of time. So this article came out on August 1st, and they say basically like, hey, this is rated PG because PG is a technical rating. But you should probably think of it's more, but C says somewhere between PG and PG-13. They put this out before the movie hit theaters. And then also they say it's not made for toddlers or whatever. It does have some pretty intense, it's designed to thrill, all that kind of stuff. So they put this out before, but again, this is a very sad warning when you compare it to the trailers, which is like, if the trailers should have been honest to the fact that it fit underneath the horror
trailer
genre.
you sent me today, the scene where Tony Hale is walking, the dad is walking down the hallway, and like there's the scary music, and there what looks to be like blood over all the walls, like someone's streaking blood everywhere. I'm like, that looks like a horror film, although it's supposed to be red crayon in the actual film, but you don't see that in the trailer. Like you're like, that
in the original
like,
trailers, you don't. And that was part of my criticism even of this live stream that they put out. At the end of this live stream, they show a trailer for the Thor, and it's like an updated trailer that actually shows you more of the disturbing elements of the film, and it has scarier music, and it fits the overall vibe of what the film actually is. But if you just search YouTube, all the major trailers that came out before the film was released, those are the family fun adventure trailers. So it was just marketed completely incorrectly. So I do think the outrage was definitely warranted, and hopefully that means that Angel Studios will not make this mistake. Obviously, it wasn't a mistake. This was a bad decision. They intentionally decided, we are going to market this film in a certain way because we think it'll get more people to show up to the theater. That decision, that had to have been made. The people the executives must have seen the film and were like, it's a little on the scary side. Let's market it a little more on the family friendly side so we can get more of our general audience. And that was just a terrible, terrible decision because it just wasn't truthful to what people were actually going to see when they got to the theaters. So obviously it massively disturbed people. And I'm glad there was some outrage because maybe that means they'll do things better in the future. But just a general reminder, if you want to be a guild member, that's great. If you want to support specific projects, that's my takeaway. If you think David's going to be a good film, if you want to support specific projects, that's great. But don't look to a company like Angel Studios and think this is a Christian company. Everything that they are going to be distributing and putting out is like Christian. It's just not. They are in a promoter of independent films, and some of those independent films are faith-based because the people that made it were Christians. Some of them, like this film, the people that made it weren't Christian at all, obviously. But it's just a platform and a business that makes its living promoting independent films. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what it is. But they promote themselves as if they were like entirely like a Christian company to try to get that
when it makes
audience.
sense.
So that's where it gets a little problematic.
If you want to click over to David real fast, and obviously we need to wrap this up.
For sure.
But yeah, I watched a advertisement for David on Facebook, this new David film. And in the advertisement, you had somebody from Angel Studios saying, hey, y'all go grab your pre-order tickets now because we've got to keep this movement going. We need all the Christians out there to go get these tickets because we really want, this kind of content to continue being available. You gotta help support us. You got to support this movie so we can make more movies like this. And it really was, to me, it felt like a big appeal to Christians to get on board with this platform so that they will keep making Christian content. And so to me, I was like, they're marketing to the Christian audience, but the problem is that that's a marketing scheme for that movie, which makes sense because if it's a great Christian movie, that's great, and I want to support a Christian film, but we've got to realize, we've got to separate in our minds the distributor that's using that marketing ploy to get you to go buy tickets so they can make money from the Christian entertainment movement itself, because those are two different things. And we've got to change our expectations moving forward, I would say, from everything he produces is going to be like this instead to I'm going to support specific projects. And I think I agree with you, Reese. That's kind of where I land. Maybe our audience lands in different places, but I would land where I'm like, I'm going to support specific projects. I'm not necessarily going to 100% be behind everything they produce just because it's got their name on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And if I was going to say I'm not a guild member, I will not, this debacle doesn't make me think like I would never be a guild member. I honestly just don't watch a whole lot of movies or TV shows. If I'm looking at a screen, I'm probably playing video games. That's kind of my go-to like screen time entertainment, not really movies and TV shows. But if I was a guild member, like it would be like, I definitely would want to take the time to try to influence what's being made by voting, going and seeing the projects and voting yes and voting no. Because I bet if a larger percentage of those guild members had actually seen and watched the submission of the sketched film, that it probably wouldn't have gotten approved because of the amount of people that were like, I'm a guild member and I totally would not have supported this. It's like, well, if enough of them had seen it and voted down, then it wouldn't have actually gone through. You are highlighting, I see the president of the of VidAngel. He has a quote here where he says, quote, "The Angel Guild voted on an approved sketch. I was thrilled. This is the exact kind of movie that we want to release." So the executives, obviously, of the company, they were thrilled. They really liked the movie. They thought it was a great movie. And I think there is some problems with that, obviously.
Yeah, there's not necessarily problems with the movie being made. I think generally speaking, it's like I haven't seen it, so maybe I would have more issues with it myself. I don't go for horror either. I think it's kind of anti-Christian in a lot of ways, but in my mind, the biggest problem is the fact that they promoted it towards and marketed it towards the younger kids, the full family, and they weren't very honest about what was actually really going to be in the film. So yeah. All right, Reese, any final thoughts before we exit out? Y'all let us know in the comments what you thought about it. If you saw it, maybe it has a lot more merit to it than what we were saying. Maybe it's worse than what we were saying. I don't know. Y'all let us know. Final thoughts?
No, I think I'm good. I think we pretty much covered everything. So thank you everyone for watching, and join us again on Thursday.
Gold is not just a backup plan if the world falls apart. It's an investment opportunity that could set you up for generations. There's never really a bad time to invest in gold, but you want to make sure you have the right guide. And that is where Genesis Gold Group shines. Whether you are a first-time buyer or a seasoned investor, their trusted expertise and competitive pricing makes them an easy choice. They offer tangible assets in case of emergencies, but they can also design the perfect IRA just for you. And they'll even cut through all that confusing red tape from the IRS. We at Filibusted love the genius design of the Prepper Bar, which breaks up into sections like a chocolate bar. But if you prefer a more high-security insured gold storage, they have that too. And unlike Fort Knox, the gold is actually there and 100% owned by you. Genesis Gold Group is a safe, simple, and convenient way to invest. Visit filibustedgold.com today for your free investment guide from Genesis Gold Group.